Hello there again, this is Bob. I am proceeding on this frame, and now I have a number 4 frame that I have been taking apart and trying to pick up some little ideas or problems that run across. And taking this thing apart, I think I've got some stills of it, and it's off an early 30 AA, and it didn't have glass in it, and pretty heavily rusted, especially in the hinge area and where it attaches. And basically what I was started out to do was disassemble it, and first thing to do is take the screws out. Well, screws on one side, I put some heat on the flat screws on the edges, and they broke loose. I put a little penetrant on them between heating, used a MEPS torch and pretty local heat, and didn't go red with it, just got them smoking. And one side, the 2 screws came out, the other side's frozen. So the next evolution, the next level up, is to drill out the heads of the screws, which I did. And I drilled through the shaft of the screw, tried to center the drill so it took the head off. When I took the head off of the screwdriver, I noticed that the shaft was sitting up a little proud and might interfere on the sides of the frame, trying to pull the top assembly out. And so there's a clip in there that where the screws are, and the clip has been a little bit of a problem. And so what I basically have done is I took and drilled all the way. Once I got the clip out, which was a pretty big project, and some distortion of the corner, and finally got it out. It's heavy steel, and it looks like pretty hard stuff. And so I continued to drill through it, and then knocked out the remnants, and then tried the new screws in the hole, and the threads were still intact, and they're usable. The screws will go pretty much all the way in. And so I don't know what I'm gonna have to check and see if I've got a tap for this, but the screws did the job. And there's a trick with a screw where you can grind a little bit of a groove in the tip of it, and that will then clean out the threads as you put it into the screw it in. And that's one trick if you don't have a tap. Anyway, got it apart, and then proceeded to try and get the top section knocked out. And I had some problem removing it and accessing the clips, and bent up the end here. After I had mentioned not hammering it, I had to use a lot of persuasion. I tried to figure out a way to expand it, and my woodworking clamps don't go in reverse, they only pull in. I'll probably use them when I put the glass in and compress it, but to expand it I don't have that type of a clamp. So I had to hammer it pretty well, and removing the clips, there's a compressed area that holds the clip in, and you might be able to see or look for it, and that holds the clip in place. You then hammer it in or hammer it out, and removing it, this got pretty well distorted. I had to put it in a vise and straighten it up, but it does straighten up. This is fairly malleable. So, and what I used to straighten the frame up a little bit and to remove the clip was an old screwdriver shaft that just happens to fit right in the corner, and with a little maneuvering I've been able to put pressure right on that edge. The clip got a little bit bent, but straightened up, and so all is well. And this particular frame I thought was pretty decent, and then as I get into it and start cleaning it, I find that it's got some corrosion. There's an awful lot of rust in the hinge assembly and surface rust. What I'm finding is that when I take these apart, I want to kind of clean them, make sure they'll slip back in place when they're put back together. And one trick I'm doing now is taking some this is 60 grit and placing it in the groove. This is the wider section, and the other part of the hinge fits down in there, nests in, and runs the whole length. And to clean that out, I'm putting the sandpaper into the groove, and it's doing a pretty decent job of getting some of that heavy rust out. And then what I'll do is etch it before I prime, and test fit everything before I put it back together. Another part of this is the side seals, and in order to access there's one screw on the side that's captured or held in. It's the one that captures this corner clip. It's held in there by the seal and the metal that captures the seal. And when you take it apart, you can see pretty deteriorated stuff. But what I learned two things. One is that the profile of this seal, which kind of looks like that, it fits into the clip, which is on the outside edge, and the swelled part of it fits up into that clip, and then it's compressed down. And I found that it was compressed about every 3 or 4 inches down the sides of the frame, and that was kind of important to learn to me, and which direction that seal's supposed to be. And this is pretty much identical to the roll of seal or gasket material that I got in my supplies to put this thing back together. And this fits on 3 sides. This type of seal fits on 3 sides, the 2 sides and the curved bottom. The top, of course, is a separate seal held in place by the hinge and screwed into the header. So that's basically it. I had a couple of other things that tips that I've come up with in this process, and what I'm going to do next is wire brush this, and then if necessary hand sand it, especially in the grooves where the glass gets embedded. Get that as cleaned up as I can. I've got one section of the frame that needs to be repaired. It's rusted out, and what I'm going to try doing is soldering it or leading it. You can see one of the holes here one just about like it on the outside edge, and the inside's pretty much intact. So there's two sides here that need to be filled, and I thought about doing epoxy, but I think what I'm going to try is lead, and see if that is a little more user-friendly than the epoxy. The inside channels here have quite a bit of rust, and what I'll intend to do is chase them out a little bit, get some of the big pieces out, and then use the phosphoric acid etch, and then prime them. And I haven't yet gone to a rust converter for this rust here. I've only noticed, I haven't really noticed any pinholes in this particular frame. Of the 4 frames I have, one of them does have pinhole rust, but it's mostly in this metal edge around the perimeter that holds the seal in, so it's not structurally a problem. And I think it's probably good for my lifetime installation for me, getting up there now. Anyway, I use several methods on these screws. One is first to try some heat. Second, I use the heat to loosen the top section of the frame to get it out of there. And then I talked about the orientation of the seals in the clip, drilling out the heads and knocking the shank out to get the screws in there. I do need to find a tap, and that's pretty much it. The metal I found to be pretty forgiving, and that it will straighten up in the vise pretty much. I might have to chase a little bit with the file, but using the wood to drive it in and out, you can see now this is pretty much distorted from the hammering to get this hinge apart, because it took some doing to separate it. And I would have just really boogered it up with a hammer if I hadn't come up with this idea. So yeah, I wanted to add 2 things here. One is we missed seeing where the corrosion is, but there's quite a bit on that frame. And the second thing is, if you'll notice, I had a diagram and I had the screw involved. And hopefully that diagram, you can see the position of the screw that holds the top and the side frame together. I've neglected to explain that, and it's easier to add it to the end here than it is to try and go back through it. So, and we're going to continue this. This is just one in the sequence of getting this glass installed. These frames are real tricky. They look simple, but they're not. So stick with me and we'll try and get this done. Okay?